Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Ice Mac MMA podcast. I'm Jackson McCarty. We'll talk to Alex Eisman here in just a second, but quick note: make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, rather YouTube. That's where all of our episodes are going to be going. Also, Alex, horrible time to be a Canadian. This card that we just got done with, also a bad time to be an Ice Mac member because we did not do so hot across our predictions.
We did not, and I think I might have cursed the Canadians, bro. I might have done
Absolutely.
it. I was talking about how much I love Canada last week, and then and then they went over.
So we're now an anti-Canada podcast.
I'm not saying we're an anti-Canada podcast. I'm just
I
saying I might. Oh, you are.
I'm
I'm just saying
decreeing
I
this
might have cursed
podcast anti-Canadian.
him. I might have cursed him.
Yes, absolutely. Well, somebody did because didn't they go 0 for 7 on this card?
Yeah,
Canadian
not
male
a
fighters.
single Canadian winner.
Golly, dude. Like, how do you even accomplish that? I saw, I believe it was more dogs won than favorites too. I believe it was 7-5 across the card.
Does that count Drinkus? Because that was like even at the time of close.
I don't know. I saw a loose statistic that said 7 dogs and 5 favorites or something to that extent.
Okay,
Um,
maybe.
but
I don't know.
yeah, and overall, we'll get to talk about each fight in depth that we predicted, but the main card was very lackluster outside of that main event.
Yeah. And what's crazy is like I've been seeing all over like the timeline on Twitter that people are calling this like a top 10 UFC fight.
No,
And that has me like scratching my head. It's got to be just some like you got to be an insane casual. Like this has to have been like the first fight card that you've ever watched. I think that was.
it's definitely top 5 in the year 2024.
Yes, that
I'll
is
give it
true.
that.
That
Like,
is true.
I'll give it that much, but no, I mean, we probably had 5 fights better, probably at least 2 or 3 better just last year. Now, when you expand it to
Two or
history,
three, I think that's a very conservative estimate too.
I just didn't want to get into the listing of it all. I
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
like immediately I thought of a couple at the end of the year. Like we had 2 or 3 at just we from October to December that I think you could probably hold in higher regard. Not to discredit this fight, it was a fun fight, but yeah, it's not in the top 10. It's not top 50 in UFC history. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here?
Yeah, I don't know. That's just I'm surprised like you hadn't seen that stuff, but like that's what I was like the last couple of days. I was like I had to do some double takes on some tweets. Like, are we being serious or are we being like
I don't
ironic?
get I don't get serious MMA takes on my Twitter. I get like booger beard. Like,
Oh,
that's
I mean,
it.
I get a lot of those too, but that's why I was trying to figure it out. So I had to like look at some replies, like go through these, pages to see if they were like dead ass or not. A lot of them were seriously thinking that this was like a top 10 UFC fight ever. And like you said, I don't want to discredit it either because it was a really good fight. It got fight of the night, very well deserved.
Yeah.
But UFC's been around for 30 years. Let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Well, but you have to think like just off the top of your head, the first Jones Gustafson, you've got any of the Moreno Figgies. You pick out of that, and that's almost 10 by itself.
Yeah.
Like you've got some absolute bangers just within the last couple of years, and that's not diving into like the
Robbie
hall
Lawler, Roy McDonald.
exactly like the Hall of Fame fights.
Yeah.
It
I don't know
blows
if
my
that's a Hall of Fame fight.
it should no, oh no, not if you're talking about Drake and Sean. No, I
Yeah.
thought you were talking about
Yeah.
Rumble and Rory first. I was like,
No, no,
what are
no,
you
no.
talking about?
I was talking about Drake Sean. That's not a Hall of Fame fight.
I'd even go as far to say Poirier versus Chandler.
I would have said Gaethje and Chandler. That
Both.
is a Hall of Fame fight.
I'd put both. Poirier Chandler had 3 different endings. Is the reason I
That's
said
true.
like
Yeah.
there were guys were coming out of hell to get back into that fight. No, that's an insane take. Since you brought up Hall of Fame fights, Alex, Amanda Nunes is actually going to be a Hall of Fame fighter, but she might not be done yet, and she might even have somebody coming to meet her in the octagon. Chris Cyborg. Well, first we should start. I guess I kind of spoiled that a little bit. But Nunes post card Saturday was like, maybe I'll come back. Who knows? We're trying to work stuff out. Chris Cyborg sends a tweet out saying, hey, if Nunes is getting back in the octagon, maybe I'll meet her there. So what are we thinking about that, Alex?
I think that's the best thing to come out of this weekend, to be honest.
Yes.
Um, Especially, and I mean, we'll talk about the actual bantamweight championship fight, but what everyone took away from it is one, super, super boring,
Yes.
and two, there's simply no one on the same level as Amanda Nunes. And so I hope she watched that and was like, I am like me not being in the sport is hurting the bantamweight class
Yes.
because no one's excited about it. You and I aren't excited about it. No one in the stadium was excited about it. Dana wasn't excited. No one like is interested in the bantamweight division. So super excited that Nunes went out and said that. Obviously, she like stopped a little short of saying she was coming back, but it sounded like she had the itch, which is promising.
Very well. And so a couple big notes here for me. One, this is kind of like when Dana kept trying to lure Habib out. Like your true like superstar in a sense of like you have to watch this person because you know what they mean to the history of the company. But he could actually reel this fish in. Habib was never coming back. Nunes, you can throw some money and a Chris Cyborg fight at her and absolutely get her back in the door. I don't want it being for more than one fight though. Maybe if Blanchfield takes the belt and then you can do a Nunes versus Blanchfield passing of the torch or, some kind of like current meets or future or whatever, maybe I could get into that. I don't want it to be them trying to make the Pena fight happen because that's a very real possibility right now. That we get Rocky versus Pena next, which I hate to
That is
say it,
so
but Pena would
gross.
win that fight.
Pena
uh,
would win that fight, but still, that is disgusting. Like I honestly, I hope that we go Nunes fights Rocky immediately. Like I'm hoping that this is soon.
yeah.
Nunes gets to fight Raquel Pennington, then she gets to fight Pena again. She crushes Pena, and she never gets another title shot again. She's gone. She's vanished from existence. That's what I want.
Okay, so some quick searching. Cyborg fought a couple days ago, right?
Okay, I didn't
She,
know that. Oh, right, right. What
yeah,
what am I thinking? Yeah, she did.
yes. She just boxed. She got an 81-second knockoff walkout. Um, so hypothetically, if they could make the timeline work, we might have a new 300 fight.
That would be a crazy turnaround though.
Dude, that's
But
2 months
okay,
away.
but
That's 2 months away. Nunes can get into camp right now, and it already sounds like she's trying to work it out. And Cyborg took zero damage in that fight.
I'm saying for Cyborg though, one that is super quick, but also you got to have a belt on the line.
I disagree.
Absolutely 100% have to have a belt on the line.
This is maybe the only woman, Kayla Harrison as well, but even then, I don't know about it anymore. This is maybe the only woman's fight in mixed martial arts that you could do without a belt and still have it headline a pay per view.
I
This
disagree
is
with that.
See,
I
this is
disagree
purely
with that.
legacy to me, and I'm okay with that. I think it would be just so cool for both of them to meet back in the octagon again and just see what happens, especially at 300.
You rarely see any men's non-title fights headline a pay-per-view though.
I know. But the return of Cyborg, the return of the Lioness, the women's goat.
Dude,
If you
I
can't get
just have
Conor,
a
you can't get Bones. Like Nunes is the third biggest or most important fighter in the last 100 cards of the UFC behind Conor and Bones.
I have a hard time believing that Nunes would come back and not try and get a title.
Maybe
I have a hard time believing that she like is one of those motivated by the paycheck more so than like further cementing her legacy as the greatest women's MMA fighter of all time.
she doesn't need a belt to do that though. She beat Cyborg again after Cyborg hasn't lost since the last Nunes fight. And it's a legacy thing. She gets to be one of the main attractions on 300. She might not be all into the money, but the pay-per-view points on that would be pretty sweet. You get to renew an old rivalry. You get to make something happen that a lot of people thought would never happen again by getting Cyborg back into the company. Maybe you take a fight after that for the belt. Like, I just I don't think it's necessary for her to get back in the belt because I really don't anticipate it being for more than one or two fights. Like, I don't want this to be a GSP situation. She comes out of retirement, wins the belt, and then goes away again.
Yeah.
That sounds like a nightmare to me, even with how bad the women's bantamweight division is.
Well, it could be a John Jones situation. I mean, we don't know if John is going to fight after Stipe, but at least
Yeah,
he gave you a defense out of it. I would be okay with that. I'd be okay if Nunes won the belt off of Raquel, fought Cyborg, and then vacated it again. And then you set up Pena and um Aaron.
Blanchfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
That I would be okay with.
I personally, I don't need the belt to sell that fight. I don't think a lot. I think if you're going to get two women in the cage, those are the two most recognizable women you could possibly do it with, not named Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, 100%. But I think if you're headlining a pay-per-view, there's no way that fight is going to be the headliner if there is not a belt on the line. If there is, guaranteed that headlines the pay-per-view. That's how I feel.
Maybe, but maybe it doesn't even need the headline. Like 300 could be that, and what's the other main right now? Because the card's not looking great. Gaethje and Holloway. Like you could
Oh, you're
almost,
talking about the main card on 300?
yeah, because that's still what I want
Oh,
them.
dude, there's some. I mean, there's um. Oh my God,
Charles
why
and
am I not
Arman.
remembering?
You've got Charles and Arman.
Yes,
Gaethje
Charles
and
Arman
Max
is the
is
one
the
I was
main.
thinking of.
I would still say Gaethje and Max is the main event.
No, there will be another title fight besides Whaley. 100%. There will be.
We'll
It's
see. I
either
mean,
going to
there's
be, I'm telling you, it's either Leon Bilal or Alex is fighting somebody.
Izzy.
That's who it's going to be.
Um. Oh, speaking of Izzy, did you see his video of him laughing at Sean?
That dude has become so insufferable.
Yes. Like,
Like
which I mean, I'm not going to throw too much on him from that video because he was not the one that said, "What a title reign," though. That was one of his other dumb buddies, and he just laughed. But yeah, it doesn't get any easier to like Israel Adesanya in the last 3 years.
Yeah. Well, like,
Really, since
dude,
Paulo.
I was, up until I want to say like a year or two ago, I was like I am an Israel Adesanya fan. Like I enjoy watching him fight.
Right.
But and in the his style of fighting, and we've talked about this a lot of times, his style of fighting made up for his personality,
Yes.
Like he was super exciting. But then when he throws up stinkers like he did against Sean
Yeah, he became a
and
points fighter at the end
Jared
there.
Cannonier and
Right.
like all of those like dumbass fights. And then he's like talking a big game like he's this, finishing machine and how he's like the greatest thing to ever happen to the UFC. It's like, dude,
Don't forget
stop.
about the period where he was calling out Darren Till.
I totally forgot about that.
That's just my favorite period of Izzy's reign, I think, is just because of how funny it was. He was like this could be the greatest, champion or whatever. And then he's like, give me Darren Till. it's like he's just out here chasing rubies, bro. He's
Yeah.
just out here chasing emeralds.
That's why I still like Kamaru. Like Kamaru is definitely a little corny in like, the way, in his interviews and stuff. But like he can talk a big game, but also like I am always excited to watch him fight. I think even the decision fight with Leon was a lot of fun. I thought the Hamzat fight was super entertaining too. And he did that on short notice too. Like I think Kamaru is way more like about it and like
Yes. Well,
Kamaru stands on business, baby.
he doesn't come across as arrogant. Izzy comes across as arrogant now. Whereas, I mean, Marty has accomplished a ton, and he's
Yeah.
still willing to go up on on short notice and fight, Hamzat. Like he's just, yeah, like you said, he's about it. He just wants to be in the cage. He wants to get in there and prove that, his belief that he's the best fighter on planet Earth is well
Yeah.
founded. And
Yeah.
Izzy just doesn't. A lot of times, it feels like he just kind of goes out there to perform a little bit during his entrance, and then kind of
Dude puts
dance around.
more efforts into his walkouts than he
Yes,
does on the
game
than he
plan.
does in the cage.
Yes, yeah. He'll. That's probably why he doesn't do much. He gasses himself out on the walk down. All right, let's get into this card. Let's get into this last card. We won't have to spend much time on most of the fights beyond the main, but I got a feeling the main event's about to eat up a chunk of time. Did you have you? We talked about this. You had 3-2 Drekus. I had 3-2 Sean, but it
Yeah.
was one of those where we both kind of understood either way.
Yeah, I gave Drekus 2, 3, 4. I think 1 and 5 were clearly Sean's. Listen, I understand that it was close, and like if Sean won that fight, I wouldn't have come on here being pissed off. Um, but this has kind of been my like we've gotten in this debate, several times on the pod where it's like, is it damage? Is it like the strike differential, or is it the takedowns? And to me, the takedowns are what did it for Drekus in those middle 3 rounds, where he was able to kind of overcome Sean, and it was still slight because Sean outlanded him slightly in those 3 rounds, but the takedowns were made up for getting slightly outstruck.
And like this is kind of where I do lean into the takedown portion of it. Like I gave it 1-2-5 for Sean. I thought it was clearly 3-4 for Drakus, 1-5 for Sean. It was all about what you thought about round two. Um, but in 3-4, when Drakus took those rounds, the strikes that were being landed weren't super jarring. So that takedown and that control time does kind of take over for me. Whereas, like, if Sean had been dropping nukes and and Drakus just managed to get 2 minutes of control time from him or whatever, then yeah, it wouldn't matter to me. But since it was fairly even as far as um, not volume, but like actual impact in their strikes, you do lean into the grappling. So I totally get it. Um, I would like to see them run it back, even though Dana said they're not going to, which is a weird call to me. Feels like you guarantee Izzy versus Drakus now. Which I mean I get. That's good money. That's an easy
Yeah,
rivalry.
it's been building up for so long. Like it makes sense.
Yeah, if only
Um,
Izzy could beat Sean Strickland and keep his title. We'd
yeah.
have we'd have had that now.
Well,
Uh,
that's another one where I hope Izzy just shows up. I hope Izzy shows up like he did against Alex the second time.
See, I kind of want him to just get him knocked out, like
Get
just because
Izzy
it'd be
knocked
so
out.
funny.
It would be
No,
super funny if
yeah,
Izzy got knocked out. It would
yes,
be. But like for the fight's sake, I'd like to see Izzy like actually, be entertaining again, like
I
he
would
was in the
too.
Alex fight. And that should have had me like standing up, screaming when he knocked down Alex. Like I want that.
Yeah,
I
like
want I want to
that
see that again.
emotion, that
Yeah,
energy that just freaks you out almost from seeing the old Izzy.
yeah.
Um, I I don't know who I think's going to win that Drekus versus Izzy fight though.
It's hard. It's so hard for me to pick against Izzy against guys who I think are way worse than him. But like Strickland did it. Like I don't know who's gonna show up. I'd like to think that Izzy would be motivated enough against Drekus, like he was against Alex, to bring his A game.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, he's had plenty of stinkers in the last couple years as well. So
Well, and I think it's just that weird style that both of these guys present because Izzy is so methodical and tries to keep that range and try to use your style against you. But when you don't really have like a game plan and it's just kind of run and punch,
mhm.
um, that's probably not going to be the most fun thing for Izzy to deal with, which Drakus is a run and punch machine. Let me tell you.
Well, apparently he's a takedown machine too. He got 6 against Strickland, who's like a decent wrestler.
Yeah.
Izzy is not a wrestler at all.
No.
Like Izzy got thrown around by Jan Blachowicz, like, and I know that's a higher weight class, but still.
I mean, yeah, the principle is the principle. Jan is not a takedown machine. He
Hmm.
certainly is not as good on the ground as Drakus has proven to be. But yeah, I would almost prefer to see Sean and Drakus run it back and let it be Alex versus Izzy 205
At
at
205.
300. Yeah. But I congrats to Drakus. I guess we haven't said that. Like he did do enough to win the fight, and he did enough to win the belt. Just don't like to see it change hands on a split decision.
Yeah, and that's how it is with anything. That's how I felt with Moreno and Pantoja too.
Yes.
Like, and obviously we're partial to Brandon Moreno, but like, still, I can understand. I can understand that feeling because even though Dricus won and like that's who I picked, like it still like doesn't feel quite right on a split decision.
No, it's you almost like just want him to do another sudden death round.
Hmm.
But obviously you can't really do that in MMA, can you? No overtime allotted there. All right, we touched on it a little bit. Rocky beat Mayra Bueno Silva, least satisfying outcome possible.
Oh, such a snoozer. Yeah, I mean, Myra gassed out.
Yes,
Like,
hard.
and, and she, yeah, and that shows that if you go into a title fight without 5 round experience, it can come back to bite you. Um, I think we'll both still uh agree that Myra is probably more talented.
Yes.
Um, but listen, Raquel hung with Myra's takedown attempts, with the groundwork. Like she hung in there and was pretty clearly the better striker. And again, better gas tank, and that especially showed in the last 2 rounds where Myra just couldn't do anything.
I think
So
if this fight had happened 2 years down the road, Myra would have handled it pretty comfortably and swiftly. But yeah, she just wasn't ready for that title. The weight that title fights carry and those extra couple rounds, and um, so it just it paid. Rocky's experience paid off in very big ways. Now give me Rocky versus Aaron and get that belt on Blanchfield, please. Need it.
I I I don't want Aaron to have to fight Nunes though, because she's gonna get smoked.
I mean, we'll see. Probably,
I
but
I
like,
think she's still too young to fight Nunes. She's only 24, dude.
I know,
She's
but
got so many years to be good.
no, but if
You can't have like a Darren Till Tyron Woodley situation just on steroids.
you will, but here's my logic. If she gets the belt, I immediately am right with my 1-1 in our Rising Stars draft, even if she doesn't have a defense, because if she loses it, it's to Nunes. And I'll have our first champion, and it happened to be drafted at 1-1. So it's a very satisfying outcome for me. Um, But yeah, I mean, even if I would still like for her to get that belt, have the Nunes fight to get that experience, and then come take it when she's gone or whatever. Just my
I
opinion.
guess.
Just my
I
opinion.
just I'd like to see more of like the passing of the torch from Nunes vacating it to Blanchfield like taking over on there, because Blanchfield at 135 is like the only exciting person.
Yes.
Maybe we get if things don't work out with Valentina and Grasso. I'd like to see Valentina go to 35 too. Just get some excitement in that division, dude.
That'd be cool. Just Aaron Blanchfield having to stare down the barrel of Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko to get the 135 belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, easy work, 24-year-old. Go get it done. Jesus. But yeah, women's bantamweight, not an exciting division right now, but we got to give it some time because it takes a little bit for these divisions to kind of heal themselves whenever a legend leaves. Uh,
Yeah.
Now, if she comes back, that'll reset that whole process, but whatever. Congratulations to Rocky. Sorry, we're kind of talking down on you, but
Yeah.
is
I
what it
mean, it's just like it's like the light heavyweights when John Jones like kind of vacated the title, you know?
Yeah, you
It's
looked
like
at it and it was like, oh, who was it was Jan versus Magomed, right? For
no, oh, it was Jan versus Reyes,
Yeah, and then it
right?
was Jamal versus JDS. Let's
No,
go.
Jan beat Reyes, then beat Izzy, and then lost to Glover.
There we go. Yes, that's where I got off track. I was forgetting about the Polish Powers run there for a second. I
Yeah,
jumped in straight to whenever it got vacated again because we had the Magomed and Jan tie,
yeah,
and then we had Jamal and Glover. Yeah.
yes.
But proof in the pudding, right? That's what the light heavyweight division was for a little bit there. Like it just was nothing, and random people getting belt shots. All right, next one. Hype train derailed for Mike Malott. Just gassed out like crazy, and Neil Magny knocked him or TKO, but all the same.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, he wasn't ready. Cardio's key.
Dude, that's like, I mean, we talked about gassing out in the last fight, but gassing out in the third round, you've been training for 3 rounds your entire life.
Yeah, like since
Like,
you knew you were going to be a MMA fighter, you have been preparing for 15 minutes, and you got he got through 12 and a half, and then it just went.
but hey, that's Neil Magny doing what he does best, and that's being a gatekeeper.
Yeah. Malott, this will be one that'll be really fun to see happen again in like 2 fights for Malott.
Yeah, I still like Mike Malott a lot. And I mean, those first 2 rounds, he looked great.
Yeah,
But yeah, a little bit of a reality check for him.
big time. Now he'll have to go back, pick up a couple more, and then maybe get another shot, 2 or 3 fights time. Again, I would love for it to be Magny again. I would love for
Mhm.
him to go down, beat a couple cans, and then get one more shot and see how it goes. But do you have
Yeah.
anything else you're wanting to say on that one?
No, not really. I mean, that was the story of the fight was that Malott gassed out.
Yeah. But you mentioned gatekeeper. Chris Curtis is the perfect gatekeeper and will be as he, moves forward in his career. Proved it against Marc Andre. I mean, it wasn't anything super inspiring, but he got the job done.
Yeah, so I think you and I both we both said Chris Curtis was going to win this fight
Yeah.
because just because of the pedigree of the people that he's fought, and that definitely showed. Marc Andre is a good fighter. He's not a ranked fighter, and that's really just how it played out. Everything that happened in that fight wasn't really a surprise for me.
No, it was pretty much how you picture a fight between those two guys going. The most interesting part of all that, to me at least, after the whole ordeal ended, was Chris Curtis saying that he would fight Sean, even though that
Yeah,
they're really close. Like, which is obviously better than a lot of what we see, throughout the company, guys being in the same camp or whatever, but it makes sense because it's like you guys already fight a lot. Like, I understand that you might have to make some adjustments to your camp, but if you guys are just paid to do this, your friendship shouldn't necessarily hold you up from chasing your ambitions. Like Chris Curtis should be aiming as high as Sean Strickland if he's wanting to succeed in this business, no matter if they're friends. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, it's just makes sense.
Well, that was so the I think the quote was, which I thought was funny, was like we beat each other up for free, like in
Yeah,
sparring. Like why don't we get paid for it? You know,
yeah.
that's a
Well,
good
and
way to
dude,
look at it.
they might just partition the gym and have the two
Yeah,
guys draft who they want, like it basically like tough, and have those like neither one of them might leave their camp. It might just be split the gym down center field and do it that way.
yeah. So and listen, Curtis has a ways to go before he
Yes,
fights Strickland. So this is a very far-fetched hypothetical right now.
absolutely.
But it was just kind of put out there after he fought. So it's a little interesting because usually you don't see teammates, but and you think about Aljo and Marab
Yes.
never fighting each other, and said they'll never fight each other. So it's interesting to see the teammates talk about that possibility, but still a
Um,
ways away.
but well, and we say that, but we are also watching Garbrandt versus Figgy in the year of our Lord 2024. So I don't know how far off it actually is, but that fight breaks my heart every time I think
That
about
is doomsday for you, dude.
it. Dude, I haven't moved the book. The book's still over here. So every time it gets brought up, I just have to look over there. I'm like, no. It just makes me so sad. Okay, let's the biggest I don't know
I
that
was
it's the biggest.
surprised.
I was surprised. I don't know if it was the biggest surprise of the card. Um, just not really what we wanted to see from Arnold Allen, not up to the level in which we know he's capable of. But Avloyev didn't really prove much to me either. I mean, he landed not nearly as many of his takedowns as he went for, which for one, I think he was like 4 for 13 or something. Striking looked meh. Like he didn't really. I didn't leave that fight being like, oh, okay, now I actually have a rejuvenated feeling on Mob Sarafalev.
I disagree with that just because of who Arnold Allen is. And like I still believe that he's really good. He's definitely one of the three best featherweights. Going into that fight, I thought one of the three best featherweights. I think it's him, maybe four, because I'd like to see him fight Yair
Yeah,
and see how that plays out. Definitely top four to me.
but it didn't look like Avloyev was shutting Arnold down to me. It looked like Arnold was in his own way.
Yeah, his striking looked really bad.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and that's not a Movsar Avloyev thing. That's just a really talented dude coming in and having a awful fight. And even then,
Yeah,
it was still relatively close. Like
it
even with
was. I mean, you knew Mobstar won, but like God, he just didn't have that sort of like aggressiveness that you're used to seeing from him on the feet.
I wonder if he got hurt like in camp or at some point early in the fight or something because you're like it looked like the energy aspect of him was like 60% gone.
Yeah.
So like it's hard to really improve your stock if you're a Vloyev unless you go out and finish a guy like Arnold Allen, even in those circumstances, but he didn't.
I think that still improves his stock a ton. He'll get, I know Yair's fighting Ortega, so he'll probably get like a Josh Emmett, maybe even like, I mean, maybe even Max after 300. Like
Maybe
that's on the table.
it is. I just it's one of those that looks better on paper than it did in the fight. Like you're not gonna sell like if you watch that fight, you're not gonna be able to sell Evloev against Emmett or Max. Certainly not Max. But if you look at it and you're like, oh, he beat Arnold Allen by unanimous decision. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, that does make sense. Like on paper, I agree. And I just maybe that's enough for Dana. But I
You beat
didn't
a guy like Arnold Allen, or I don't care how you did it. You beat a guy like Arnold Allen, you earn top five fights.
maybe. I don't I'm not saying he should be delegated or relegated or anything like that. I don't know. I hold on, let me pull up the UFC rankings because I'm awful at pulling those
I
out of
it's
my
got to
head.
be so you got Volk, Max, Yair, Ortega, Arnold, and then probably Josh Emmett, right? I mean now Mobstar will slide in there, but like I think in close to that order, that's the top five.
Okay, so Arnold was 4. Um, you would Ilya versus Volk's happening.
Oh,
Oh,
Ilya. Jesus, I can't believe I forgot him.
yeah, but I mean he's got bigger goals than Movsar Evloev right now.
Yeah,
What about the winner of Cater Aljo?
that could be interesting,
That feels
especially if it's Aljo.
yes, that feels like a really good like basically a tournament in a sense where the guy that wins that maybe gets the next title fight. I'd be
Yeah,
down for that.
yeah. That could be super interesting. I'd like to see I would kind of like to see Aljo fight like Yair, maybe. Or
Yeah,
just like more of a striker. Like I think stylistically, like Mobsar or like Ortega could be super fun just because of the grappling. But the clash of styles I kind of want to see with Aljo at 45, I'm not gonna lie.
but we still got time for that.
Yeah.
Aljo is not going away anytime soon. I just think logically, if you do Evloev versus probably Aljo, I don't anticipate him losing to Calvin Cater, but
Mhm.
I guess crazier things have happened. But Evloev versus Aljo, I think would be a really fun. Maybe even if Aljo loses, maybe you just penciled that in for the next one. I don't
Could
know.
be.
Food for thought. I
Yeah.
just I
It's
don't know.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
he's
totally forgot about Aljo at 45, so that kind of
And
Yeah.
Evloev's now perfectly in that range for me, at least, where it's like maybe Emmett does make the most sense, or Aljo, or whatever we decide. But like when you hit Ilya and you have Yair, Ortega, those guys, it's like I don't know that I believe that he has done enough to this point in his career to get that. I get that he
Mhm.
beat Arnold out, but like I don't know. That's
It's a
just
good
where I'm at
win.
after that fight. Maybe I'm just being an Evloev hater.
It's a good win in my
It
book.
is.
I don't care how I did it.
It'll be one in like 3 or 4 years when I see it. I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, like that was a good like that's kind of where it started. I just
Mhm.
in the moment I didn't leave impressed.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then the last one we got here, we really underestimated Sean Woodson's um just ranginess
Yeah.
because dude looked good
He
and
did.
caused Jourdain a lot of issues.
He did. And yeah, we talked about it last week. We didn't think it was going to be that much of a factor, but clearly it was. And we were saying that that's he oh my God, Jourdain hasn't fought someone like that before.
Yeah.
So it definitely, I mean, obviously it caused him problems as we saw. So I don't really know where you go from here if you're a Jourdain
You just got
or
to give him
Woodson, to
fun
be
fights, I
honest.
think. I think
That's
you just
just
got to give him fun fights. Sean Woodson can probably get like a 10, 11, 12 guy.
really,
I think with unicorns like that, Dana's probably going to try to skyrocket him pretty quick.
I guess. I just like I don't know. It still doesn't feel like there's I don't feel like he's got a lot of hype around him yet.
No, but I think that's one of those that you just kind of put him in the cage and look kind of like what we were talking about last week, where it's like, whoa, look at that guy. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think there's going to be hype until you make the hype. Just because watching a guy like it's like Corey Sandhagen, like he's not generating much hype based on like his personality and things of that nature. But whenever he gets in the octagon and he's towering over his opponent, you're like, oh, I have to see this.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what Woodson's going to end up being.
Hmm.
So
Super funny that the at the end of the fight the confusion with the decision.
it was the Steve Harvey Miss America stuff.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Which that wasn't even like that confused me too, because like
Yeah.
I heard the name, I was like, Sean Woodson won. But
Yeah.
I'm watching Jourdain celebrate.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what's happening.
I mean, that's messed up to be honest. That
But
is messed up.
but it wasn't even like on Buffer's
No,
part.
it was
Like he
on the
was just
ref.
yeah, it was the ref and Jourdain's can't being like, that's us.
Yeah.
Like,
That's crazy.
oh, God, man. That'll end up being the second most memorable thing from the main card.
Yeah.
Maybe third
Honestly,
because
yeah.
there was two title fights. Like
Hmm.
I guess title fights automatically probably go to the
The
top.
co-main completely forgettable.
No, but Rocky winning the title is memorable.
Okay.
That's my argument there. But second or third, depending on where you put it.
Hmm.
All right, Alex. This next card we've got coming up, four fights, four pretty unpredictable ones, like we were talking about. And four pretty strong quality fights. Not really what you expect. Now, granted, this one is not Saturday. This will be next week, so we won't have an episode next Monday or Tuesday or whenever. But okay, we'll start off with Vivian Araujo versus Natalia Silva. What are you thinking, Alex?
I like Natalia Silva a lot, actually. She's kind of caught fire recently. Uh, Arujo's trending in the wrong direction. Um, and so I think this is really just a fight to kind of set up Silva to springboard even further up the rankings, to be honest.
I'm kind of there with you. I think Araujo's good enough to push this to a decision, despite Silva kind of being a bit of a buzzsaw through this point of her UFC career. Um, but yeah, this wasn't necessarily a hard one to pick. I mean, like you do kind of like part of your head just from knowing Araujo is like, oh, well, she might be able to get it done. But yeah, you look at her last handful, she's like 1-2 in her last three and not moving that right way. And Silva is on the incline. So I'm with you. Give me Silva by decision on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, Viviani is tough. She's a tough fighter. She's a tough fight for anyone. Another kind of gatekeeper there. Um, but yeah, Silva's shown that she's got the rare finishing ability that in the lighter weight classes. Yeah, she's a lot of fun. She's a lot of fun to watch. So going with Silva.
Yeah.
Next fight is who is the next fight?
Rude boy Randy Brown.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
rude boy taking on Muslim Salikov. Salikov just kind of falters whenever he takes these steps up. He looks a cut below, the range of guys that are right there around 15 or right in that ranking possibilities. And I think Rude Boy is one of the more undervalued fighters in the company.
Oh
Like
yeah. Well, you
I
and I both love Randy Brown.
yes,
Love him.
we're a Randy Brown podcast.
Yeah.
And I think he goes out here. I think he makes Muslim Salikov tap.
Really?
Yep.
That's interesting. He can do it. He
Yes.
definitely can do it.
Well, and
And
Salikov's one of those rare Eastern Europeans that isn't really that
even a
proficient on the ground.
wrestler. Yeah.
No. I mean, he's almost entirely a striker.
Yeah.
And he's got 2 taps on his record. I had to go double check it. He has 2 submissions and 2 taps in his career.
I mean, and we haven't even talked about the Randy Brown's just his height, his length, his wingspan. Like he's another one of those dudes, the Sean Woodson types that's just tough
Yes.
to deal with physically.
Well, and Randy should have so much more hype than he does. Because not only does he have that look at this guy kind of aspect to him, but he's also just entertaining. Like he is just whenever he gets in the cage, you're like, okay, I just want to watch this guy because I've seen a couple of his fights before and I know that it's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
So,
Unfortunately, he got slowed down by JDM, which
yes.
is, kind of a different animal, but
Yeah, I mean, JDM just kind of goes out there and does what he wants for a couple minutes and then the fight's over.
yeah.
I mean, there's no like unless you're Kevin Holland or who's the guy he fought before? Because he's gone to 2 back-to-back decisions, but prior to that,
Yeah. Oh, it was like the newcomer. He struggled against like
yeah.
I actually forgot his name.
But I mean,
Uh
that's kind of like because what he had the Randy finish, um,
he had a
oh,
split decision with the guy making his UFC debut.
Basil Hafez,
Okay. Yeah,
and
that sounds
then
right.
finish Rude Boy, finish Danny Roberts, finish Ramazan Ameev, Pete Rodriguez, like 4 straight finishes to enter the company. Rude Boy just happened to be the last one of that grouping.
Yeah.
And now he's up into the Hafiz and Kevin Hollands of the world. I think Rude Boy, now that he can kind of get away from the JDM types and start building his own hype, I think he does it, and I think he does it in a big way in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, and Salikov's coming off that loss to Dalby too.
Yeah.
So another guy who's kind of trending in the wrong direction, but
Which we talk, or at least I talk smack about Dolby. He has actually kind of fixed it a little bit, so props to him. Like,
Dalby?
yeah, like he's
Yeah.
actually
Oh yeah.
like I'm starting to buy in a little bit now, um, but still not where you want to be if you're Muslim Salikov.
Hmm.
Did you make a prediction? Just because I might have missed it, but you are
Oh,
riding with Rude Boy,
Randy.
right? Okay, good.
Randy, yeah. Yeah.
Just for clarity's sake.
Yeah.
We got another one of your boys now. We got Money Moicano, who, by the way, might be the most lost hype of 2023.
Yeah. So after that promo,
Mm-hmm.
after that Moicano wants money promo, should have booked a fight as soon as possible.
Yeah,
And that was
instead
botched.
he
I don't know
hasn't.
if it was botched on him. I don't know if it was botched by the UFC. Maybe it was both, but botched regardless.
When he's not only going to have his first fight in 16 months, but he's going to have to do it against Drew Dober, who, say what you want about him. He might not be a champion, but he's a typically pretty reliable and pretty steady guy in the cage and will typically present a lot of problems. So, Alex, how do you see this one going?
Moicano drags him to the ground and subs him. That's the clear way to win for Renato
Yes.
Moicano.
Yeah, this for me, this comes down to Dober's takedown to defense versus Moicano's jaw. We've seen Moicano go out a couple times before. Um, I lean more towards the fact that Dober is coming in as an experienced fighter. They're gonna know that the threat of standing with Moicano isn't that looming. You know, like the threat is the ground, and that's not a secret. So I'm sure he spent a lot of camp working on that takedown defense, trying to, make sure to shore that up. As much as I hate to say it, because I like Moicano as well, but I think he's going to sleep here. I think Dober puts his lights out.
I won't believe that Moicano will get knocked out until I see it after that RDA fight.
And that's a totally fine rationale to take. I just don't like this. Just every fight's a little bit different, and Dober might just hit that right spot a little bit better. But also being out of the cage 16 months, like that does so
It is a
much to you.
while. Yeah, it's a long time. But listen, the iron chin on Drew Dober might be melting a little bit.
It is not melting in size, I'll tell you that.
Not melting in size, but in strength after Favola cracked him. So there might be a little something there for the taking on the feet. I wouldn't. I hope he doesn't try that because I think that's not the easiest way to do it, but it could be there.
Hey, Alex, let's play a fun game real quick. How many fights has Drew Dober had since the last time Moicano was in the octagon?
16 months.
Yep. It's been since February of last year, I believe. Or
You
no.
said November of last year, right?
Yeah, November of last year. Sorry.
4,
3.
3.
He's had 5 since March of 22, though.
Okay.
He had, yeah, because he had one December against Bobby Green, May against Frivola, October against Ricky Glenn. And then he had one in July against Rafael Alves. And then his Terrence McKinney fight was in March.
Okay.
So, dude's been in the cage, to say the least. Um,
Listen, he could do it. I feel like Moicano is just better. Like I feel like his ground game is super underappreciated, to be honest.
yes.
Um, I think his jujitsu doesn't get the same respect that some of the other very good Brazilian fighters get. Um, but
But
I
he's got
guess
to
you
be in
never
the cage
know.
to get that respect.
Yeah.
And maybe next week or whatever, 14 days when we're recording this, basically, um, maybe he flips that switch and makes it happen. But I something about that layoff scares me, and Dober being as experienced as he is just makes me lean into that personally. And then the main event we've got here, Roman Dolidze versus Nasruddin Imavov. This is, I think, maybe one of the most fun fights and one of the most important fights you can book without fans caring.
Yeah, this one is has been very tough to predict
Say,
for
yeah,
me. Like both of these guys I think are really um they're up and coming. I know Delije is like kind of old, but he's still fight young.
right.
Um, but like they both show like a lot of promise in the division. Um, I want you to make your pick first. I want to hear who you think is gonna win this.
Okay, so I was right there with you. I was struggling to pick this one for just personally. So I had to do a lot of number crunching. And here's the numbers that kind of stood out to me. I think this one probably stays on the feet, as weird as that sounds, because Imavov lands 31% of his takedowns. The lead say has a 33% defense. Like it's movable force versus wait, what's the other portion of that statement? Something
Movable
object.
or unstoppable force versus movable
Yeah,
object,
it's
something like
stoppable
that.
force versus movable object. Like it's neither one of these guys. Or if Imavov throws a takedown, deletes they ain't defended it, but Imavov might just miss. But if it stays on the ground, Imavov is a significantly higher volume puncher, lands significantly more often, and can stuff those takedowns because Imavov has a good takedown defense. So the numbers lead me directly to Imavov. So that's kind of the way I have to go. Like if I can't pick it on eye test and kind of feeling out process of knowing how these two dudes fight, I have to go to the numbers, and the numbers in almost every way support Imavov.
We'll see because I'm going with the Leadze.
Okay.
And like you said, the eye test, I've seen several fights of both of these guys, and if we're splitting hairs here, if I'm gonna lean one way or the other, I'm gonna go with the power puncher, right?
Yeah.
Like Delide, I have more confidence will be able to finish this fight, even if he gets outlanded, you know.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think this will probably stay on the feet as well. Um, but with yeah, the deciding factor for me was who do I think is going to be more effective when they land, and that to me is Delide.
And maybe I kind of rate Imavov's ability to kind of put that pressure on him with more volume and kind of make Roman sweat it out a little bit more. Whereas, Roman might be trying to take chunks out of Imavov, whereas I kind of think he can be able to avoid that a little bit. Not an easy fight to predict though. Like, I mean, we've said it multiple times now. I didn't even put a method for this because I really don't. It could be a KO, it could be, a fall to the ground sub type thing, could be a decision.
Mm-hmm.
But my gut didn't tell me anything. The numbers tell me Imavov. I got to go with that.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm going on vibes.
And that'll probably get you farther than numbers will in MMA.
Dude, we've had a lot of success, betting on vibes,
Yes.
picking on vibes too.
Your boy had a
Sometimes,
lot of success on vibes this last
yeah,
weekend.
the vibe, yes, yeah. Not me as much. You definitely did. I had some. I gotta reset the vibes, dude. I need a vibe check.
Yeah, TCU
But
can burn. That was so bad. We take TCU -4.5 and they're down 20 at half. It's like that's
and
great.
the thing is, they almost came back too, which is like they like the hope's gone at halftime, and then you wait like a half hour and check, and you're like, what the hell?
You're like, wait a minute. But it was that perfect time where they came back to where you knew they would never win by 5.
No,
Like if
but
they
it
were
was
going to
like
win,
it
it
could have
was going
gone
to
to
be by like
OT.
2.
Could have gone to OT,
Right. Maybe. But like
and that would have been miraculous.
yeah, that would have been huge. But I think we missed on the last one anyway. Oh yeah, because it was the Florida State game. It's okay, Alex. We're gonna get the vibes right. We're gonna get the vibes right. While we work on that though, tell them where they can see our podcast or hear it.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. His Twitter is it's Jackson TM. Mine is Alex Eisman KGWN. Like Jackson said, we'll be off next week since we already made our picks for the next fight card. No fights this weekend, unfortunately. That's how it goes. Go watch the Lions in the NFC Championship instead.
There you go. Yeah, one pride.
Yeah.
Not a
One pride,
Lions guy,
baby.
but not well. I'm a Lions guy right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right, Alex. You got anything else?
Nope. See you in
All right.
2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.